Grace and peace to you today. Throughout the season of Lent, we're going to take a look at some spiritual disciplines or practices, touching on a different one each week. In our gospel on Ash Wednesday, Jesus names three of the disciplines. He names prayer, almsgiving, and fasting. And so we'll start with those and then also add in scriptural study and Sabbath as two other fairly classic disciplines. But this is not by any means an exhaustive list, nor really is any. And we could easily add in others like solitude, meditation, confession, among a lot of others. For some folks, even something like spending intentional time in nature can be a spiritual discipline. For a while now, my own working definition of spirituality has been an awareness of God's presence and action in the world and in your life. Spiritual disciplines are not by any means a way to win God's favor for us or to earn our own righteousness, and certainly not a way to impress other people so that we seem more holy. Spiritual growth is the purpose of the disciplines. What they can do is raise our awareness of God's presence and action, giving us a new and deeper lens into who God is and who that means that we are. And that way they deepen our spirituality, they deepen our faith. And in large part what they do is they open us up to God's grace. Richard Foster, in his book Celebration of Discipline, which is one that I use a lot for this series, he says that God has given us the disciplines of the spiritual life as a means of receiving his grace. The disciplines allow us to place ourselves before God so that he can transform us. He says that as we travel on this path, meaning of the disciplines, the blessing of God will come upon us and reconstruct us into the image of Jesus Christ. He then continues and says, the path does not produce the change. It only places us where the change can occur. This is the path of disciplined grace. I really like this last point that he makes because with certain disciplines, it would be easy to say that something like prayer calms us or helps us talk something out or helps us give away responsibility. It's kind of a way that we might process something ourselves. And if we only think about it this way, it becomes more of a psychological endeavor. Instead, he helps us to see that the real good that the disciplines can offer is that they open us up to God, to receive God and God's grace, to then deepen our awareness of God's presence and activity and allow God to transform us to live more and more as the image of God that we were created to be. God's grace is free. As Lutherans, that's a belief that we refuse to compromise on. But that doesn't mean that we do not have our own work to do in the process. And practicing spiritual disciplines are a way we can do that work of opening ourselves up to God and allow God's grace to deepen our spirituality, to deepen our faith, to then transform us, and then perhaps to use us as vessels of God's love and grace for the world. So as you try them out, remember that we're rarely good at something the first time we try it. Foster even brings up a Thomas Merton quote that says, "We do not want to be beginners, but let us be convinced of the fact that we will never be anything but beginners all our life." So as we move through this season of Lent, a season of repentance, of turning again to God, I invite you to give the spiritual disciplines a try, going a little bit past the awkward phase with each one and see which ones connect for you and might be ones that you want to dive deeper into as you experience God's grace through them. God's peace to you.